I'll call the February 23rd, 2011 Brattleboro Development Review Board meeting to order. Reintroduce myself to my fellow board members. We haven't all been together for quite a while, and I'm glad to see you all here today. We have seven members. Any of us alternates? Timberlake, you're an alternate. For the rest of the evening, I'll appoint
So
you.
am I.
And you are too, aren't you? Yeah. The rest of the evening, I'll appoint each of you to hear all matters coming before the board, which brings us up to a full contingency of 7 board members. It has been so long since we've had a meeting, I've probably forgotten my introductory spiel, but I'll try my best to remember it. Welcome to the Brattleboro Development Review Board. We hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro. We have fewer items on our agenda than it may first appear. A couple of matters we'll dismiss rather quickly, and then I think we have 2 or 3 substantive matters before the board tonight. We conduct our hearings on the record. We have so for a couple of years now, which is a pretty slight variation to the way we conducted hearings before the Select Board adopted on the record review for the Brattleboro Development Review Board. It requires a couple of items for which I'll ask your assistance. One, we have to keep a record of all of the matters before the board and all of the testimony. So that's going to require that as you present evidence to the board and participate, I'd ask that you come up either to the microphone here in the front of the room or the applicant to speak clearly so we can pick up the comments from the applicant at the side of the room. The other change is that we require that all persons who wish to submit evidence to the board do so under oath. So in a few minutes I'll ask all of those who wish to participate tonight to stand and take an oath. We are, it has been the long-standing tradition of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. We allow everyone to participate. The Vermont statutes limit participation to interested persons, which isn't necessarily all the people of the town of Brattleboro. But we take the position that all residents of the town of Brattleboro and other communities, for that matter, are welcome to participate. Be forewarned that the environmental court may not take a similar position. So just because you are allowed to participate as an interested person before our board, you may not be allowed to do so if there's an appeal of any of our decisions to the environmental court. Before we begin, we confirm that this meeting has been properly warned.
It has been.
It has been. And do we have any disclosures of conflicts of interest or ex parte communication regarding any matters before the board this evening? Wonderful.
I would recuse from Carasona if it was to be heard.
Yeah. So I guess you should. Yeah, you should recuse yourself from the Carasona matter. Even right. We will vote on it, so right. You recuse yourself as you have in the past right. for that matter. And I think we have one administrative matter before we get to the oath, and that is the review and approval of draft minutes from the December 20th, 2010 meeting. For a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved, and a second?
Second.
Second. Do we have any comments, any revisions to the December 20th draft minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That carries 7-0. And as promised, all of those persons, members of the public, applicants, others who wish to participate in tonight's hearing, if you could stand and raise your right hand. Do you hereby affirm that the evidence you shall give and the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I do. Wonderful. Now to the matters we will dispose of quickly. There are two matters, existing matters before the board, applications before the board that have come to a resolution outside of this hearing room. And so we'll start with application 2010-155, Richard Carasona, request for minor plat approval. It's my understanding that the applicant is not pursuing approval, is pursuing development in a manner that's inconsistent with the current application, and it may or may not end up before that action, and any appeal of that action may or may not end up before the board. So I would recommend that we deny the application at this time without prejudice, so the applicant would be allowed to bring this particular application back to us. If we deny the application with prejudice, did I say without? I propose we deny without prejudice. Sorry, I may have misspoken. If we deny with prejudice, that means the applicant wouldn't be able to come back with that application again. There would have to be some substantial modification, and we haven't really finished our deliberation. So, unless there's an objection, ask for a motion to. I guess technically we're supposed to. We're supposed to make all of our motions in the affirmative. So, motion to approve. So I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So
Moved.
Second.
I second it. Now, if you vote yay, just to remind you, then you are voting to approve this application for which the applicant hasn't provided us any information and has withdrawn. So, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
And I abstain, so that fails 061, and let the record show that that denial is without prejudice.
052.
052.
052.
052, sorry. 052. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Similarly, application 2010-156 has been resolved outside of this hearing room, and I'd ask that we have a similar resolution if Mr. Stuckey wanted to bring that application before the board. We haven't decided it, so I'd like to deny it without prejudice. I think it's unlikely, from what I've read, that he will bring that back, but we might as well give him the opportunity to do so. So I'm looking for a motion again to approve application 2010-156.
So moved.
Moved and seconded?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving that application, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
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 And I, in fact, will abstain because I think I recused myself before, so I think we ended up at the same place, 061. And application 2011-006 and 2011-007. Mr. Hubbard, any reason why we shouldn't hear those at the same time?
No.
Okay. So we'll hear them at the same time and make sure to make separate motions regarding their approval. Please tell us about your project.
This is a subdivision and two lot line adjustments for Mr. Jonathan Chase, his Brookside extension property and the Western Avenue properties. This was before the board in 2006 through preliminary plat and final plat approval. With approval of both, Mr. Chase failed to file the Mylar back before the final plat approval for the same subdivision.
Okay. And
Explain it to you a little bit if you'd like.
yeah, that'd be great. I know that it's not before the board tonight, but my recollection is that Mr. Chase has been before the board recently for, if not this property, adjacent property. Is this, what's the status of that application, and does this application have any bearing on that application in our approval?
Maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I sent a letter that I hope got to the board regarding the strategy to develop for the development out back and the development along the road. This would pertain to it, but we have adjusted our strategy to pull back from the PUD application.
Okay.
We have commercial development along Western Avenue, and we are going to seek PRD approval. So there'll be These lots along Western Avenue are slated for residential development, and Mr. Chase is going to pull his lot out, and then the remaining land will be part of the PRD, which we will be bringing before the board at some future date.
Okay. And so, just to clarify, will these lots be in that PRD or not be in that PRD?
These lots will not be in the PRD.
Okay. All right, so can you help me get my bearings? What lots are we talking about, and what are we doing to them?
So, I'm bored, but here are the Western Avenue lots, and the survey before you shows the proposed lines on them. Here's Route 9 with the gas station to the east, or to your right, and Brookside Drive to the west or to your left. And essentially, lot 3056.2 is the farmer's market parking area. Lot 3056.1 is the Caruso house, and 3057 is the lot that includes a small half-acre next to Brookside Drive, and is actually part of the 9.6 acres that we are subdividing. And the proposition here is to move the, I'll call it the eastern boundary of the Caruso house, to put that jog in it. It actually shows up, for some reason it was recorded in the tax map, so it shows up in the tax maps presently. But was part of the final plat approval, was moving this putting this jog in that line to give the Caruso house a little more room. Similarly, the western boundary of the Caruso property was moved over 10 feet. And those, you may actually have the previous, I simply photocopied the previous applications, so those tax map parcels maybe are from the 2006 application.
Yeah, it looks like these are prior to the initial.
Are they straight?
Yeah.
So the current tax map show, the maps you have are the 2006 tax maps.
Okay.
All three, well, I'll talk about the Caruso house and we'll call it the farmer's market parking area.
Okay.
Both of these will be residential lots that meet minimum requirements for lot size, frontage, and would accommodate development. One is developed, the farmer's market parking would accommodate a single family or a multi-family house according to zoning with setbacks.
Okay.
On the plan, you can see the 100-year flood hazard area there, and there's still room to meet setbacks and stay out of the 100-year floodplain.
Okay. That's it?
That's it for those. I can take you through the next, the other side of the stream if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What is that currently zoned right there in that area?
That's residential. The whole, all of these parcels are residential with the lot. I think the rural residential runs along this property line. So again, here's Brookside Terrace. Here's Route 9. Here's Mr. Chase's house here, and these are the three parcels. These are the three parcels that I was referring to earlier across this part of the map. So Mr. Chase desires to have his house. This is his house and garage, and he would like to have this as a separate lot, so that down the road, this lot can then be part of the PRD, along with the 43 acres that go up the hill to the back, to the south. This little parcel, this half-acre parcel on the previous survey, is part of this current 9.6 acre lot. So we are subdividing that.
Even though it's separated by
By the right of way.
Yeah.
It's still part, under the town records, it has it as one as one lot.
Yeah.
It's a little vague because the acreage is actually, the numbering of this parcel includes this, but the acreage in the listing just includes everything west and south of Brookside Terrace.
Okay.
So it's a little vague, but either way, we'd like to create a standalone lot. Mr. Chase's lot, we desire to have be the southern edge of West Stone Brook up to the island parcel, and then fronted by Brookside Drive.
And that island parcel, that's an existing parcel?
That's an existing parcel, yeah.
Okay, and there's right-of-ways off of Brookside Drive over
So there's
Lot 2 to get to that island?
So there's a right-of-way across that parcel along the north edge of that parcel, and then there's actually frontage. This is a 50-foot peninsula of land that comes down to Brookside Terrace. Similarly, there's another 50-foot right-of-way at the end of Brookside Terrace, Brookside Drive.
Okay, and access to the
Drive.
the new Lot 1 would be off of Brookside Terrace as it currently is?
That's right.
And how about access to the remainder, what's now called Lot 2?
That would be either through this right-of-way across the island parcel, or it actually has that frontage through this small peninsula. And similarly, it has a third access point to Brookside Drive on at the end of the road there.
And again, Lot 1 would include the land across West, no, it wouldn't.
No, that'd be Lot 2.
That would, okay, that would be connected to Lot 2. Okay. But there's no development on that side.
It's not a viable piece of land in terms of development.
Brian, are all of these resulting lots conforming in the district? Yes, they are. Side. Adam, if you don't mind, let me ask about some access issues, make sure I understand how we're going to access the lot. So for the first subdivision plat that you showed, that access will be the existing access into the, this is for the lot number 30.56.2. That access will come off of the existing access to the farmer's market?
That's correct.
Okay. And the access to the 30.561 will be the existing driveway for the, what do they call that?
The Caruso House.
Caruso
Yeah,
House?
that's correct.
And then how about 30.570?
So that'd be interesting. That would we have not studied coming off of Brookside Drive, and coming off of Western Avenue would be the logical way, but coming off of Brookside Drive might be preferable if possible. I'm not sure that it's really possible.
Could you have a common access with the Caruso
You
House?
certainly could have a common access with the Caruso
Just
House.
adding one fewer curb cut on
That's right.
Western Ave.
Busy road.
Got a touchy spot.
What's that?
Got a touchy spot.
Yeah. Okay. And that's state highway out there?
No.
Okay. May want to condition the approval on a curb cut approval from V-Trans, and they may make the recommendation that it be a common curb cut over the Caruso House lot. Brian, the state has to approve a curb cut on the state highway, right?
Yes.
I didn't have any more questions or comments. Any other members of the board have questions or comments regarding the applications?
The island house is going to be considered a separate lot.
It is a separate lot.
It is a
separate ownership.
It wasn't numbered on the on this plan, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it's an existing lot with separate ownership.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the board have questions or comments regarding these applications? Any members of the public have questions or comments regarding either of these applications?
Anything built there would be all public utilities, right?
It's all public.
Water and sewer.
That's right.
Hearing no comments, I'm looking for a motion, take them in turn. Motion to approve application 2011-006 subdivision for 19 Brookside Drive. With the condition that V-Trans
What's the other?
approve.
I think that's
Is
what
that, yeah, I
2010.
got them in order.
Yeah,
Okay,
2010
sorry.
references.
Without any conditions, other than the standard conditions for recording of the Mylar, which didn't occur last time. Looking for such a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain, that carries 601. And then looking for a motion to approve application 2011-007 for a final plan to adjust the boundary line at 606 Western Avenue with the additional condition that the curb cut on Route 9 be approved by V-Trans, or that access to lot 30.570 be gained through a common right-of-way with the access on 30.561.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. I abstain. That carries 601 as well. Thanks a lot, Adam. Thank you. I will call application 2011-003, Thomas Hudon for Sunny's Exit 2, appeal of a zoning administrator's action. Before we begin, just remind the members of the board, especially those who haven't sat on appeal of the zoning administrator's decision, that certain land development in the town of Brattleboro doesn't initially come before the DRB. The zoning administrator has some discretionary power to hear applications and make decisions regarding applications for land development. We have a number of different rules. One of the rules that we have is to hear, as a kind of an appellate court, a decision, an appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. So in this case, the applicant has applied for a permit to install a canopy and convert an auto service garage to a convenience store. Maybe we'll talk about that. And that application was denied by the zoning administrator, and the applicant has now appealed that decision to us. Our decision is ultimately appealable as well, but the appeal starts with us. So probably start by asking what it is that you asked the zoning administrator to do, and then we'll probably ask the zoning administrator some questions as well. So please tell us about your application to the zoning administrator.
Okay, the application was to convert a non-conforming use, which is a gas station in the zone, to a neighborhood store, in this case a grocery type store. The zoning administrator denied that, and we're appealing that under two grounds. One, that a neighborhood store is a conditional use in that district, and so therefore should be reviewed. Maybe that portion would be zoning ordinance. And secondly, the neighborhood store certainly is much more conformance with the zoning, and therefore would make it a more conforming use, which should also allow for the changing of the property from the gas station to the neighborhood store.
Okay. And there's a few other items, it looks like, that are part of your application. Maybe some physical changes to the site, including a canopy, moving from self-serve or full-serve to self-serve maybe, and there might be some signage and maybe some pavement changes as well. Can you just walk us through all those changes?
Well, the property that we own here is non-conforming pre-existing use. There's one section of it that has never been used. It's 40 by 80 feet. We'd like to move this Sunoco sign up the street 40 feet so we can have entrance into the property from that point rather than having it smaller. The entrance would be 32 and 33 feet.
Okay. So you'd have
I
a...
wouldn't require any curb cuts because there's no curb here, there's no sidewalk here, it's just dirt.
So the entrance to the, what is that, the west would
What's
be,
that?
the entrance to the west would change a bit?
Right,
Okay.
west side, yes.
Any other changes? How about the canopy? Any change?
Canopy, well, that would be part of this, the whole self-serve thing, so that you can have the fire suppression in the canopy.
And you need a canopy for self-serve?
Well, that's recommended.
Recommended or required?
I'm not required to my knowledge,
Okay.
but if you should have an incident, would keep it right there. It would also keep the lights down in the neighborhood, because the lights are in the canopy. Very nice LED lights, and they don't shine out, they shine right down. There's not many Exit 3 mobile has in my own gas station. They have very nice lights, they just shine right down.
Okay. I'm sure we're going to get a long way tonight. I don't know what will happen, but we have plenty of time to handle this tonight. What we definitely won't be able to do, if it goes in this direction, again, I don't know what direction it's going to go, is to make any sort of site plan approvals, because we don't have any plans, I guess, or do we have plans
Yeah.
showing the canopy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the lights. Everything has lights.
Well, maybe we could then. All right, I retract that statement. I misunderstood what we had.
Thing is, I have to do some serious work to put new tanks in, that's what the station is closed right now. I don't want it to be closed, when the station up the street is closed. The tanks didn't pass the state test, we like to shut the station down, get the gas out of the tanks. Rather than play around with them, try to patch them up.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again?
This letter explains
Rather
it.
than, the tanks didn't pass the state test. They had a leak in one of the spill containment buckets,
Yeah,
which is where they dropped gas, and some of the gas spilled into the dirt.
okay,
So the state shut it down. Now, I could have done one of two things, either dug it up and patched it up, or close it down until we do this here.
Okay.
So I just chose to close it down until we do this.
okay.
I have a permit into the state for the new tanks, and it would be all double wall tanks and double wall pipes and everything.
And does your application and the replacement of your tanks, does the state require that you change your entrance, or that you put in a canopy, or that you make any other changes to
No.
the service station?
No.
Okay, so those are separate.
They're separate.
Okay, but you thought it was prudent to do it all at once. Okay.
For clarification, the road up the hill to Solar Hill, is that actually runs along the
Property line.
west line that I
Yeah,
see?
here's the property line, that's Bobby Johnson's property line, that's.
Yeah,
the line,
okay.
yes. There's maybe 3-4 feet before the road.
Okay, and the tanks would be located in approximately the same location that
Basically
currently?
where they are now.
Okay. So any other, so there'd be a pavement extension into the adjacent lot under common ownership, a modified entrance, a canopy. We don't have any elevations on that canopy, do we? Height, color?
It would be a little canopy with maybe 13 feet in the air.
Okay.
I don't know if you're on your house, no. 13.
All right.
Huh? Same as the one on Putney Road. The snow on Putney Road, be identical to that one.
All right. Any other, I'm sure we'll get back to you, but any other elements of your initial application to the zoning administrator? And can you describe, it's identified as a service station now on our plans. Can you describe what's going to go in, what you wished to be inserted into that building? I mean, you characterize it, I think, as a neighborhood store.
Neighborhood store.
What kind of items would be served in that store?
Just regular, things that people need for their, just like my store on my Getty station on Canal Street.
Okay.
Stuff that needs, whatever they need, we would have it there. Probably do a less degree on Canal Street because there's a little less room, but not so much less.
Nope, and
We'll have, household necessities.
I live immediately above the Getty station, and in the interest of full disclosure, enjoy having breakfast and pancakes. You're not going to have a restaurant there.
We aren't going to have a restaurant, no.
No.
We may have a little hot dog put out to one side.
Okay.
Is that going to be all new construction, or are you going to
No,
use
we're
the
going to use the
existing?
same building. It's going to be all gutted. It's going to be, there's not going to be a beam in it. It's going to be all redone inside.
Okay.
I can show you some pictures
That'd be great.
of the Getty station before and after.
And right now, your location has a service bay, and do you
It
perform?
has a service bay, and what happens with a service bay is that people, they just can't hire anybody to get in there and keep it the way I want it to be. In other words, I'm looking at the snow go across the road, I own that also. And I can see it every day, and if there's a problem, I just go over and see it. This is what it was, and this is what.
This is what it was on the
Exactly.
Getty
Yep,
station?
Yep.
And
And that's basically what we're gonna do there, just gut it out, and all these ones that are marked with a, that's what it was before, and that's what it is now.
okay.
And that's basically what we're looking to do up there now. To have a neighborhood grocery store where people can go and get what they need, quart of milk, a dozen eggs, or whatever.
Any idea? Again, I know at least one person uses your Getty station without buying gas. Any idea at your Getty station now on Canal what the mix is? What percentage of people are dropping by and buying things, and also buying gas, and how many are coming independent of gas
A
purchases?
lot of people are walking.
Any idea?
Walking in. Probably 30% are walk-ins from there.
Okay.
Either from the new housing development down the street, or from like Washington Street, Highland Street. But they expect the same thing up on Western Avenue from those streets over across the way.
And by walk-in, do you mean literally walk to the
Or
store?
literally walking
How
in.
many people are driving to your store but not buying gas?
Some do that.
Any-
Drive in and just.
Any idea of what percentage that might be?
I don't. Without the food, I don't know what the percentage would be. With the food, sometimes it's quite high.
And well, it's not relevant because you're not putting in breakfast. I'm going to just pass
Yeah,
this along
sure.
to other members of the
Sure.
board to see that. And so the inside of this building, as it currently exists on Western Ave, has an interior that's not
Basically
dissimilar to
like
that.
maybe a little bit different looking junk, but it's basically junk inside.
Okay.
It's tools that you need to work on cars, but
it's going to be all cleaned out.
Okay, and that's an active service station?
Yes.
And how often do you think you have, cars in the shop for
When we close
repair?
down, we have them every day. We do 20 state inspections in an inspection period, and mount and balance tires, of course.
20
In state inspections.
per,
Probably in an inspection period,
so that's a month?
2 months.
2 months? It says say 10 per month. And then how many cars would you have?
To work on?
Yeah.
It would depend, and of course, a lot of people left
Peter, can you grab that?
would leave their cars right here, and that was another problem. We have people coming off the highway and just parking their car and leaving it there.
Yeah, and how often would you have a car parked how often would you have people dropping a car off? And would you have cars that you couldn't get into the bay that would be parked on the side for a period of time?
I moved 4 or 5 of them out within the last month up here. That had been left 5 customers, 4 fellow who used to work for me. He got through working for me, and here I got cars, so they disappeared. Just try to get in touch with customers, of course.
Where would you put the parking? I'm sorry.
It's to the right of the building.
To the east?
The east, you could probably get 2 parking spaces.
To the east?
Yeah.
Kind of pull in, back out spaces there?
Yeah.
Okay. Anywhere else?
And, well, to the west, you probably could get about 8, oh, 6.
Okay, so some over here. So Timothy, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The pavement extension, is that existing, or is that
Yes, that's not pavement.
not?
That's just dirt. That property is just dirt, that rectangle, 40 feet wide and 80 feet long, that's just dirt right there. And it's just a mud hole in the spring and in the fall.
People travel on that now?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they leave cars parked here. Actually, that one that left their car parked here and went and shot somebody. Put down for a day for that.
Okay. Brian, so you had denied the application probably for more than one reason. Can you tell us why did you deny the application?
I think first the characterization of the application has changed since I denied it. The original application called for a convenience store with the change to self-service gas pumps, the addition of a canopy, the movement of a non-conforming sign, and the increasing in paving. They're now describing it as a neighborhood store, so that definition is central to an understanding of
Okay.
this application.
Would you continue to characterize this as a convenience store, or do you think it's a neighborhood store?
I believe it is a convenience store.
Okay.
There's considerable overlap, but convenience stores are considered a road service like gas stations. I think the example they give is 7-Eleven. I think what distinguishes that from neighborhood stores like Avenue Grocer is the sale of gas. And I think the sale of gas makes it more of an automotive-oriented business.
And so we might as well take a minute and look at the definitions then. So a convenience store under the definition, and just for the other members of the board, I'm sure you reviewed this, but this is important because for 2 reasons. One, a convenience store is not permitted in the district. A neighborhood store is a conditional use in the district. So if we have to do a conditional use criteria review, we can only even entertain one use as a conditional use, and that's the neighborhood store. I think that the secondary consideration for the board is that it's not clear to me that a convenience store wouldn't be allowed in this particular case, even absent the conditional use criteria, if in fact we determine that a convenience store, if we determine that this was a convenience store, not a neighborhood store, but even if it was a convenience store, if a convenience store is a less intense use than its current use, which is
Non-conforming. In its current non-conforming.
right, it's currently non-conforming, but it'd be a less intense non-conforming use
Right.
than its current use as an automobile service station and repair garage. Is that?
That's what it is.
And everyone agrees that that's its current use:
Yes.
automobile service station and repair garage. So, if a convenience store is less intense than an automobile service station and repair garage, it is permissible for a convenience store to be there. It's also that same analysis would occur with a neighborhood store if we determine that this is a neighborhood store. Is the applicant could replace the existing use with a less intense use, and we'd have to determine is a neighborhood store either one a less intense use, and even if it's not a less intense use, it could be permitted as a conditional use under the zoning ordinance. So it's back to the definition. So this is currently an automobile service station and repair garage. It is a pre-existing non-conforming use that is not a permitted or conditional use in the district. It's not a conditional use in the district either. It's not a conditional use in the district either, neither permitted nor conditional. A convenience store is a small-scale retail establishment that primarily sells food, beverages, newspapers, and magazines in a limited supply to customers. Convenience stores are characterized by high individual use, small number of items purchased, and very short shopping time per customer. And it gives examples like 7-Eleven and Cumberland Farms. And then a neighborhood store is a shop or store including a grocery store as distinct from a supermarket, drugstore, stationery store, soda fountain, luncheonette, and barber shop intended primarily to serve the area in which it is located. The use shall not include a store in excess of 2,000 square feet of gross floor area, and you don't have 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. Okay. Any other reasons for other than the characterization of the store, any other reasons for the denial?
Yes. Part of the proposal is to extend the pavement. This has been proposed in the past and refused. Another part of the proposal is the addition of a canopy. A canopy is a commercial type of architecture incompatible with the residential character of the neighborhood, and that would also constitute an increase in nonconformance. They're also proposing to relocate an existing nonconforming sign. There's no right to rebuild or reconstruct or relocate a nonconforming sign.
Okay.
Is the amount of impervious surface all right with the planned pavement that would go in there?
Yes, that's conforming. The canopy is also non-conforming for front yard setbacks.
The canopy is non-conforming,
Non-conforming.
so that would need
It would need a
dimensional waiver. Okay. Any other non-conforming elements, if it were other than its use and the canopy? How about the pumps themselves? Are they non-conforming?
I think the pumps are okay.
I thought in the draft findings, I thought there was a reference that the pumps themselves were in the front yard setback as well. Because the front yard setback is average, or I guess 25 feet. How many feet, Mr. Hooden, how many feet are the pumps from the front of the front of that lot, the south side of the lot?
20.
17.
15 feet,
About 15 feet?
I would guess 15.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
What is the purpose of the pavement extension in the back? Is it for employee parking or
Just for
trash?
parking,
Is there, do you have a drawing with the parking spots on it somewhere?
no, I don't.
Typically, how many spots do you usually see with a convenience store?
Well, I'm not sure that the neighborhood store that's distinguished. For example, the closest neighborhood store on the Motion has 0 parking spaces. On the other hand,
Zero setback.
yeah, if you look at the other places in the town, you see North End Market, that's got parking, I don't know, there's maybe 6 or something up there.
Oh, really, okay. So, in this case, it looks like, even with turn radiuses and all of that, probably have like 6, 10 spots. Is it in the back?
You could have, again, to the east of the building, you could have 2 spots, possibly even 3, but 2 spots very comfortably. And to the west of the building, I've got additional 6 more spots that are sketched out here. That includes the area that would be converted to gravel pavement, which is parking in there.
As far as a truck coming in here, what is the, how does the truck get in to fill up the tanks? Does it have to go underneath the canopy and sort of turn around? Is that the idea?
Probably back right in next to the building. On the right-hand side, they generally deliver at night.
Okay.
They just back in, drop the gas in. Because it's not good to go during the daytime, it's not going to get out.
Yeah. So would you guys be open at nighttime?
Pardon me?
Are there restrictions on how late they're open, or?
No,
No.
no, currently aren't. What are your normal business
Just till
operations?
9.
9. What time do you open?
7.
Do the lights go off at 9 then?
Pardon me?
Do the lights go off at 9?
They will, yes.
Also, it bears noting for the board that there are 2 types of non-conformance. There's a non-conformance in use and there's a non-conformance in structure. And our section 2410, which deals with non-conforming or non-conformances, deals with both of them. And that is, let me just double check. Yeah, so just again, just for reminder of the board, any structure, lot, or any use of a structure or land lawful on the effective date of this bylaw shall continue to be a lawful structure, lot, or use, subject to the provisions of the section. Any non-conforming use or non-complying structure may be continued indefinitely, but shall not be moved, enlarged, altered, extended, reconstructed, or restored, except as provided below, nor shall any external evidence of a non-conforming use be increased by any means whatsoever. So even for non-conforming uses, if there is evidence, external evidence of the non-conforming use, that's not permitted. Internal changes, apparently, to a structure in connection with a non-conforming use presumably would be permitted. And that a non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use of equal or less intensity. That's the issue regarding the intensity of the use of an automobile service station versus a convenience store versus a neighborhood store. But use shall not then be, such use shall not then be permitted to change back to a more intensive use. So it couldn't ever go back to, if we found that one of those was a less intensive use, it could never go back to an automobile service station. Looks like we're going to have some members of the public participate as well. At this point, does any other members of the board have questions?
Yeah, I have one. What is the distance of the tanks from the property line on the east side?
Any other questions at this time for the applicant?
There's 3 existing tanks there now, you're going to be replacing with 3 upgraded tanks?
One bigger tank that holds 7,000 gallons of one, and 3 others.
So that drawing right there shows 3, is that what's
That's what's there
existing?
right now.
Okay, that's what's there right now.
Okay.
And you'll be replacing that theoretically with with 1 new tank that's
One new tank that's
double cell or
yeah,
something? Yeah.
yeah.
And
it's-
how will the footprint of that new tank compare to what the
it will
footprint of those
actually
3 existing
be
ones?
Smaller.
Right. Will it be further away from that property line?
Probably, we can put it up towards the building more.
So you've got some room to work in that size
Yeah.
once you dig that giant hole and take those 3 tanks out?
Yeah.
Right.
And what is that?
And that'll still be just 2 pumps, right?
Yes.
What about the canopy? I'm a little concerned because of some things that have been going on with some gas stations where canopies have collapsed because of snow.
I
I'd hate
think,
to see that happen here.
That's what I...
think those were really old canopies that
Well, what
Yeah.
kind of materials, what kind of structure are you going to be
Steel.
using?
what company is that?
It's steel canopy, 60 pounds live load. We have about 100 of them. We didn't lose one. We are very concerned about the appearance and the structure both. We overbuild rather than underbuild.
Just so we have a nice, pristine record, can I ask you to stand up and introduce yourself and provide those comments?
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman. My name is Richard Barnes. I'm the Senior Vice President for Sandry. We are the Sunoco distributor for all of the Sunoco stations in the state of Vermont. We own about 100 stations, and we have had, in reference to her question, we have about 85 canopies, and we have gone through the same winter. Our canopies that we use, and Tom has agreed to use those, go 60 pounds live load, which is required by the state of Vermont. For engineering purposes, we have not had any incidents whatsoever this winter compared to some other companies.
Thank you.
Live load requirements of that are between 40 and 50 for just so you get an idea of what the spot.
Can I ask another question? Sure. The reason, if I understand you right, you're choosing to construct that canopy so that you can house the fire suppression system in it, right? How would they do that if they didn't do the canopy? Would you just have to not have it?
No, you could put the fire suppression on top of the pumps. There's a couple of stations that have them like that. One up the other end, 7-Eleven up the other end of town has a setup
wouldn't-
like that.
But that wouldn't be as inclined to contain the fire or any, if there was an incident, as you said.
You want to keep the light down even
Right.
because you have to have light spots.
Right,
and
right.
that those shine.
So by having the canopy, you keep that
The light just stays
light
right there.
contained, downcast and not shining off the site, and it enhances the safety with that better ability to contain an incident out there, should there be one. Okay.
Question about what are the number of cars that pull in and out now, and what are you anticipating if this came to being as you're planning?
Well, it's closed right now, so there's not many cars.
Well, I realize, but,
Probably 1,000 gallons a day would be a good, you know,
and that would average, what, 100 cars
right around 100.
refueling?
If they got everybody. Up there, you have more of a person that refills and fills up. You know?
Yeah. Now, 100 cars a day is what it used to be.
Yeah.
At its peak, and
Well,
then,
more than that, actually, at its peak.
and then what are you hoping for in the future with this setup?
So just 100 cars a day.
About the same.
That would be the, you know, but get those people into the store to buy things so that you get that car coming in and you don't just sell them gas, you have other things to sell. Whereas now, the only people you get are off the highway repairs, and there's very few, as everybody knows in this room, cars just keep on going now. Whereas 25 years ago, they didn't. You'd have to pull in and get fixed. Whereas the cars are you can drive, they have limp modes in the computers so that you can drive it to your service station or your dealership is what it's meant for. Get fixed there. Whereas before you had to get fixed if the points closed up on you, had to get new points put in and plugged or whatever. And there was a necessity back then for a repair shop. And that shop did very well years ago. Yeah, at one time 3 people working there.
So the pavement extension that you have over here, that would go out past where the Sunoco sign is, right?
Yes.
To what point? How far out?
It's 32 feet beyond where it is right now approximately.
Okay, and then the sign would end up at the end of that?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions for the applicant at this time?
One thing I might,
Sure.
when talking about neighborhood stores and gas pumps, my recollection of that, there were some other neighborhood stores that had gas pumps historically. For example, Ciders, remember filling up there, having a gas pump.
Where's Ciders?
That is market.
Across from Academy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay. On Chestnut Street, there was a very small store again that had a gas pump in front of it.
Sowers.
Sowers.
Frank Sowers.
Yeah.
Gunsingers.
I'm gonna miss you, John.
Gunsingers kind of on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And another gentleman in my office, a little older than I am, believe it or not, remembers gas pumps at Ted's at the top of Capitol Hill. I don't remember that, but he remembers that occasionally. So, I mean, it's not, neighborhood stores historically, some of them had gas pumps, so this is not historically
Thank you.
I'm not sure all those were actually classified as neighborhood stores when they were approved.
They were neighborhood stores.
Let's get some input from members of the public. Any members of the public wish to make comment or provide evidence to the board? Hi there.
Hi, I'm Ann Braden. I live just back behind the gas station off of Western Ave, and I'm concerned that the addition of a canopy, even if the lights go down, would change the nature of the neighborhood a lot, just because you get off exit 2, a lot of tourists do, and you drive into downtown and you pass all these beautiful historic homes, and I just think the existence of all that new infrastructure would really change the feel, and so that I'm concerned that what that would do to the area. Also, if it's open later than it has been, even if the lights go down, there's still a lot of light that wouldn't be there right now.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have comments? Yes. You've been nominated.
I'm John McPherson, and I live across the street from the Sunoco station. And I've lived there for 24 years, so I'm pretty familiar with what goes on in the neighborhood. I have a couple of sets of questions, I guess. I'm not sure whether this is an appropriate issue for the board, but on the website, Brian has posted some historic information. This has been litigated in the past, and there was a Supreme Court decision. Vermont Supreme Court. There was also another decision, I think, in Superior Court, in which the owners were stipulated that they wouldn't apply for a conditional use permit for expansion or enlargement. That was 1988. Since then, there's been two other applications. One, 2001. 82, 88, and 2001. Two of them, I believe, was you were asking to pave the additional lot.
No, I never did. I never asked to pave it. I was going to pave it, and I was turned down by the
Okay.
by the
But
zoning
the application
person.
was to pave the lot.
No, I didn't have an application in.
Well, the application in 2001 that I just read, you were asking to
And
pave the
I know
lot.
I didn't give this guidance before, and I apologize for not doing it. It just works best if you just kind of direct your comments and questions to us. We'll make sure to gather them and then pass them on to the
All right.
applicant. But we lose that pristine record if folks from the public and the applicant start to chat without our involvement.
Okay.
Right. I'm sorry.
Well, the
didn't
reason I
mention
raised that is going back to 1967, I think it was. It was there were two lots. One, the Gibson lot, the other, the Tyler lot. The Gibson lot, to my knowledge, has never had a conditional use permit. And that's the lot which is not paved. And it is zoned
Residential as well.
multi-residential, or
I think just
I don't
residential.
know. Yeah. Another issue is that the drawing that was submitted is dated 1993, and I know that it's not accurate in terms of the pump location. So I don't know what other inaccuracies there might be. We already pointed out that there's actually going to be one tank with a petition, not three tanks. Right.
Okay.
So there are other issues that I'd like to address about intensity.
Sure.
Traffic would be one of them. I don't have, Brian, do you have a map of the location with Crosby Street and Solar Hill Driveway, et cetera?
I might have distributed a Google Maps to the board.
I mean, obviously, Western Avenue is a major thoroughfare. Goes out to exit 2. There's a lot of traffic on Western Avenue from Stratton back and forth to exit 2. And a lot of the customers that stop at the gas station are either coming from exit 2 to Stratton or back the other way. So there's a lot of traffic on the weekend. Crosby Street intersects Western Avenue just west, I believe just west of the western entrance. And it's difficult when you pull up to Crosby Street to see, going either right or left, the traffic that might be coming at you because of the parking situation. In addition to that, Solar Hill Driveway comes down along the side of the boundary on the west side. A lot of people there who approach Western Avenue aren't aware of the right-of-way, so they compete with the traffic in Crosby Street, and then you can have somebody pulling out of the service station who's also competing with the other two. There have been a number of accidents there. I don't know what the incidence is, but it's been Historically, there's just been 2, maybe per year. Pedestrian got hit there a couple of years ago. Noise, I would say, actually, Craig, I'd correct you that there are hours established for the gas station. They run, I believe, from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. Gas station is typically
2 a.m. on weekends.
on weekends only.
And holidays.
The gas station is typically not open that late, but there are lots of instances in which there's noise from the gas station in the nighttime hours. In addition to that, the truck that delivers the fuel delivers it at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't back into the station, it pulls into the station, and then it backs out into the traffic. So that can be a really noisy situation for the neighborhood. And also the dumpster gets dumped at dawn in the morning, so that's another noise consideration. I'm speaking to issues of intensity. I don't know whether anybody has any questions that they want to pose as I go along here. We mentioned lighting. I think there's a lot of light loss to the neighborhood. The way the lighting situation is set up now, it would be great if that could be resolved in some way. I guess there was a question raised about serving food. I haven't heard that before. I don't know whether that's a use in a neighborhood store or a convenience store, but I would have a concern about that and trash and kind of smells and whatever would generate from the serving of food. I guess that's about my list.
Thank you very much.
Question?
Sure.
A question for the zoning administrator. Can you tell us what the noise ordinance is in a residential area? Are there hourly limits or?
The noise ordinance applies to all of the town areas between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Regardless of the district?
Is there a decibel standard or is it a nuisance standard?
It's a nuisance standard.
Yes.
How far, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. My name is Martha Fenn. I have attended every one of Mr. Hewden's appeals for the last 50 years. I live across the street from the gas station, and I was one of the plaintiffs when this case went to the Vermont Supreme Court. I really don't know why we are here tonight, because expansion or changes to the Sunoco station have been ruled unjustified every time Mr. Hewden has appealed. We do not know why Judge Gibson ever sold that small piece of land next to Mr. Hewden. And we are sorry Mr. Hewden is losing money, but we strongly oppose his desire to open a convenience store or neighborhood store and pave the gravel area and the residential zoned area. That is what you have not talked about. The Gibson lot is zoned residential. That is the gravel entrance that he finds hard to plow. But he would extend it back in here behind the station. This is residential land. This is commercial. It is a pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential area. And I frankly don't see the people walking, there aren't enough houses along there for people to want to walk and buy their will. And you can't cross the street without being killed. And I cannot imagine a self-service gas station and a convenience store in the same little building. And the cars that he referred to as being parked there are parked in the residential area where they're not supposed to be because that's a commercial use. It is a zoning issue. There are 2 lots here. Are there any questions? I have a complete file going back 50 years.
Thank you. I did note that it became a pre-existing non-conforming use, I think in
I'm hard of hearing.
I'm sorry. I think it became a pre-existing non-conforming use in 1956. So it's in its 55th year as a pre-existing non-conforming use on Western Avenue.
Which can't be changed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other members of the public have comments for the board? Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. My name is Steve Phillips, and I'm a businessman and I generally support business, but this could not be clearer that this kind of use should not go forward. I think Brian got it just right. And for the life of me, I can't possibly see how the board could disagree with him. Nevertheless, in order to preserve my rights to appeal, I want to state my concerns on behalf of myself and my wife, Sarah Phillips. We own property to the south of Mr. McPherson, and we have the pleasure of being bathed in bright yellow light night after night from the non-conforming Sunoco sign, which was great to drive by tonight and have it see it turned off. But that's not the norm. There are also lights on top of the gas pump. I'm not sure if you can see them from that picture. You can see the bright yellow sign. I own 2 properties, actually, 2 parcels, and both are adversely affected in the existing condition. And there's no doubt in my mind that proposed change would increase the intensity, have an adverse character in the neighborhood, adverse impact, and change the character of the neighborhood, both in terms of lighting, noise, traffic, dust, a number of things. You can see the pieces above the pumps there. They're lit. They wash glare a fair distance across the street and affect the neighbors here who are concerned. So I'm hoping, for a number of reasons, that you will deny this request to overturn Brian's denial of the permit. One of which is, it seems to me that, I know you've got this waiver thing that's not really a variance, but in essence what we're talking about is a variance requirement. It's like a variance to put the canopy in. It's too close to the road. We also have the pumps too close to the road. And I urge you to exercise common sense in determining what is a convenience store and what is a neighborhood store. If you know the yellow store, I think everyone may agree that's a neighborhood store. The yellow store closer to town. But gas stations, oil companies, I don't think they have neighborhood stores. I think they have convenience stores. Quick sale, in and out, chips and sodas, the typical fare that you see in convenience stores. So our definitions maybe aren't the best in our zoning ordinance, and there may be some room for disagreement. But this is where common sense comes in. And I think you should be able to tell the difference. You go up to Putney Road,
Yeah.
that's where convenience stores are. They're located near intersections, near interchanges. The reason this is attractive is its proximity to exit 2. Not because it's in a highly populated area where people are going to walk, like Marty said, to get their milk. So there's the variance thing, then there's the parcel to the west, not a pre-existing non-conforming use. So I don't know how you can grant that as part of a new use. And the chair mentioned something about convenience stores may be okay if they're less intense. And maybe I misread the ordinance, but the way I read it, neighborhood store is allowed as a conditional use, but not convenience store.
Right.
And so I would beg to disagree that a convenience store would be permitted as a conditional use. That would be sort of like saying you can put a nuclear power plant as long as you can convince the board that it's less intense. That's a little hyperbole. And I'm not sure there's any hard and fast law on that point, but I think the question really is it a neighborhood store or convenience store for that issue? The lighting, those canopies are horrid in terms of the wash of light. So they may technically not shine directly on abutting properties, but it's sort of like looking at a lunar landing when you see the wash coming off, the reflection on the cars and the pavement, the intensity so bright. And all you really need to do is go down to Canal Street. Sounds like there's another similar canopy, and look at it, and you'll see. That really doesn't belong, in my opinion, in a residential neighborhood, so I'd urge you to disallow that. I can conceive of a use where maybe there's a residential, maybe there's a neighborhood store there where there's no gas tank, and maybe it's less intense, but I don't think so. The intensity of the use, frankly, in the last several years has been extremely minimal. And so it's been closed most of the time, quite frankly. So almost any use is going to increase the intensity. Certainly there'll be truck deliveries when you have to have the Pepsi truck and the Wonder Bread truck and the Lay's potato chip truck come. There's going to be all of that, plus all the people who just want a soda before they hop on the interstate, who don't want gas. I think you're really going to see a big increase in intensity of use, traffic, noise. Yeah, I benefit from living 150 or more feet away, but it's still very bothersome just in the existing conditions. So I'm concerned about increasing the adverse impacts. I can't imagine being the next door neighbor just would really be a problem. Also, it seems to me there's conservation land in between. That's right. The empty parcel. And it just, I don't know, it seems inconsistent. It will change the character of the neighborhood to push that kind of use closer to what is the legal access for, I don't know, 100-acre, 300-acre preserve that the neighborhood really doesn't enjoy using. So I'd ask you to follow Brian's good sense and confirm his decision. Thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, is it Ms. Fenn?
Yes.
Ms. Fenn, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you, since you have the most experience, can you describe how the site has changed over 50 years? Yes, Ms. Fenn. Yes, if you don't mind. Because it seems that I assume that sign, and I'll ask the applicant to provide this information too, if you know it, but it appears that the sign hasn't been there for 50 years. Those, the tank, the pumps haven't been there for 50 years, and the lighting probably hasn't been there for 50 years. Do you recall when those may have been introduced to the site?
No, but I recall it was frequently burglarized. And then it hasn't changed much. There was some brickwork done without a permit, but then that was allowed. What was it? Did they make them tear it down?
I think we have a decision regarding that
Right.
back in
It looks like a
1982.
gas station as it did before.
Okay. Thank you.
But
Was a picket
the,
fence between the two lots?
what?
A picket fence between the two lots?
Oh, yeah, there are two lots there, the Gibson lot and the Tyler lot, and there used to be a picket fence between them, separating the residential area from the business area. But that's gone. But, it's
Thank you. And I'll ask a similar question of the applicant. Do you know when the sign was installed? That's clearly after 1956.
64. 64.
Okay. How about the current pumps? Do you know when those were installed?
Those were installed in late 80s. 92, 91, 92.
Okay.
Those particular pumps. There were 3 pumps there before, when it was a, what was it? I have a picture of it.
There was bundling and then there was just a single product.
Prior to you, though, prior to you buying it, it was a,
Two blend pumps and a single product.
yeah.
I'm going to note that the answers to those questions are that the lights were installed on around, around 1964, and that the pumps were installed around 1992.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. I just had a couple of procedural questions. I can't remember whether this is the kind of public hearing where people do get to ask questions of the applicant under oath or not. And if not, would you make the record reflect that we weren't allowed to?
Yeah, we've never had that question posed before.
Why can't you pose questions through us?
Yeah, and I'm happy to relay those questions, which has been our past performance.
Okay. And I don't know the applicants because they didn't introduce themselves. Maybe you know them, but I don't.
Well, let me ask them to introduce themselves.
All right.
My name's Thomas J. Hudon. Peter.
And I'm Peter Bowman, again, assistant.
Okay. And any specific questions you would like us to ask?
I think I'd prefer not to do the game of telephone.
Well,
But as long as
we're gonna do the game of telephone.
Okay.
If you want to ask a question, you have permission to do. Hang on, just one second.
Yep.
If you want to ask a question, you have permission to ask me, and I will ask the applicant.
Okay.
But I'm not going to, well, other than my transcription now in the record, I'm not going to make a finding that you weren't allowed to ask the question directly. That's clear from the record. It's clear from the record. That's true.
Okay.
But I will, make note that you were allowed to ask the applicant through the board.
Thank you. So one of the things the applicant said, and again, I don't know whether they're under oath or not.
They are. We are all under oath. That was what we did at the beginning of this beginning of the hearing, in which we all took that oath.
And so
there's a requirement of on the record review, and everyone's testimony so far has been under oath.
Thank you. So there was a statement that I think 1,000 gallons a day is, I think, a pretty good day at the gas station. And I wonder how many days in the last 6 months have they sold 1,000 gallons, and do they have records to back that up?
How many days in the last 6 months have you sold 1,000 gallons?
None.
Do you have records to back that up?
Absolutely none. I've not sold 1,000 gallons in the last 6 months.
And you have records showing...
That I haven't, yes.
Okay. And have you entered those records into evidence and provided them to the zoning administrator?
I can.
Okay. I'd ask that you supplement the record with those records.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So for purposes of figuring out whether the intensity of the use is increasing, it would be helpful to know how many cars a day have visited the site, say in the last 6 months.
It may also, I don't know the will of the board, intensity of use may not be applicant specific. It may be the characterization of the use. I suspect that, again, I haven't done any research on this issue, but I suspect that that is the proper analysis of the intensity of use. Not will this particular application and its particular use become more or less intense, but rather is a automobile service station use, can it be fairly characterized as more or less intensive than a neighborhood store use or a convenience store use?
And I think if I were the trier of facts, I would want to know, and that's the reason I'm asking, so that there'll be a record, whether the specific use is going to be more intense or not. Because, again, I think that's the common sense question to ask. Are there going to be more cars here or less cars?
I encourage you, Mr. Phillips, to ask those questions so we can pass those along to the applicant so we can enter them into the record.
Okay. So the question really is the maximum number of cars in the last 6 months. Do you have records on that?
Okay. I believe we don't have records, but we'll take the testimony of the applicant and give it its due weight and credibility. And so, I'm sorry, the question again, Mr. Phillips, was?
Well, the question really is to the applicant, for you to ask the applicant.
Sure.
How many cars per day at the most in the last 6 months visit the site?
Okay.
If you know.
Okay. And I'll pass that question along. How many cars in the last 6 months at maximum?
Probably 100.
Probably 100?
Yeah.
Can you type that with a little more certainty and specificity? Yeah.
I can't without records right in front of me.
But your testimony is that it's your belief that it hasn't exceeded 100 in the last 6 months.
I can't keep track of the number of cars, but I can keep track of the number of gallons of gas. I do have a record of that.
Okay.
I do not have a record of the number of cars who stopped in, bought something, looked at something, or whatever.
Any sense of what's the average, your best estimate, what's the average number of gallons per car in today's vehicles when you fill up at your
10
station?
to 12 gallons.
Okay. So it would be reasonable, then a reasonable calculation may be, given a margin of error, that if you had 1,000 gallons of gas, you had 100 to 990 actual vehicles.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes.
And so probably the last question is the repair customers, on average, how many of those are there a day? That is non-gas purchasing, people who come for repairs, say again, in the last 6 months.
Okay, great. And I'll pass that question along as well to the applicant. The number of repair customers either per day or per week?
I have no records on me that I could look back and see.
Okay, so I'll ask you to make your best estimate of that.
Just give me on a good day, a half a dozen, and on a better day, 12 or 15 cars being repaired, or stopping in for an oil change or whatever.
Okay.
But then again, we're open only 40 hours a week for that. We're 7-day a week location, and will be, regardless of how this comes out, we will be a 7-day a week location after this, regardless of which way it goes. It'll either be 7 days a week of a convenience store there, or it'll be 7 days a week of a repair shop there, one or the other.
Okay. Not entirely sure that's true, but the board will talk about whether even the replacement of the existing tanks.
Pardon me?
The board would have to determine whether the replacement of the existing tanks or an expansion of the external evidence of a non-conforming use, which is one of the elements under the zoning criteria.
Well, the state of Vermont said they have to be changed.
Just because the state of Vermont says they have to be changed doesn't mean the Brattleboro Development Review Board needs to say we approve that they be changed.
Have stations traditionally ever come here before to apply for a permit to change their tanks? I don't ever recall one.
I have.
No. Okay.
Just to change the tanks? No.
And typically because it's a subsurface change, not affecting the visual impact of the site.
It doesn't generally affect the use either.
Okay.
To clarify, expand on what he just said. Right now, he's here to apply to appeal your decision. If that fails, there's nothing in here, I don't see anything in here except him having to change his tanks that would prevent him from continuing to exist exactly as he has since Mrs. Fenn respectfully first started watching him 50 years ago, plus or minus. Steve seems to be trying to point out that in the last 6 months, or in the last whatever short window, that there's been a decline in his business, and he's indicated a few reasons why that is, whether it's trouble with service or guys working for him or whatever. But there's nothing, I still don't hear anything here that would stop him from turning that gas station back on with air wrenches and air chisels and changing tires and whatever from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Is that correct? Am I missing something?
I'm not sure that's the question before the board.
No, I know it. I realize that. I'm just trying to clarify where he stands right now. That's all.
I don't think we need an answer to that, but
Okay.
thank you for that observation.
I've got a question
Yes,
for you as the chair. I understood your explanation that the intensity of use is determined by the type of use and not the particular customer. Or applicant or user. But what if there was no change in use? It was still going to be a service station and a gas station, a service repair and gas, but the applicant was requesting to add 6 more pumps. So there's no change in use.
Mm-hmm.
But there would seem to be a certain change in intensity.
Well, I've been chair of the board now for, I think, almost 6 years. And I think we have gone into deliberative session in that 6 years at my request once or twice. I suspect that I will ask that we go into deliberative session in a few minutes once all the parties have had a chance to provide additional evidence that the board needs to consider. And I'm happy to address that with specificity in that deliberative session. I will just generally point out that 2410 prohibits any external evidence of a non-conforming use be increased by any means whatsoever. So if a service station is a non-conforming use, going from 2 to 6 pumps seems to increase the external evidence of a non-conforming use.
That's right, that slipped my mind.
Yeah. Yes, Catherine.
Did we have an email here that states that there's a neighborhood school driveway of which many children ascend? Can you show us where that might be? Where that driveway might be?
I think it's up Solar Hill.
So where would the bus would just stop there and leave the kids off right there on Western Avenue?
No bus.
No bus. Terrace. Just private drop off.
Oh, okay.
Parents typically drive off
For
the
the
hill.
parents to drop the children off. Okay. Thank you.
As I said before, I think we will enter into deliberative session. We do that rarely, and we may come out of deliberative session with a decision of the board, or we may come out of that deliberative session to let the applicant and the parties know that we need time to deliberate and draft our findings. I don't know which way that'll go, but I suspect we'll at least do the first step and we'll have a chat about which way it'll go in a few minutes. Ms. Penn, yes.
If I were Mr. Hudon, I would not take the last 6 months as a fair level of usage, because this is has been a full-service gas station, and I've used it because ladies were not meant to pump their own gas. But during the last 6 months, he's had a rapid turnover of boys who are working there. Sometimes they show up, some days that went on, the station was closed. You never could depend on it. When Dave Slick ran it, it was run efficiently.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have questions or comments regarding this application? Yes.
I'm Michelle Hudon. I am the wife of Mr. Thomas Hudon, the applicant. And I just have a couple statements I would like to please enter to the record in rebuttal to some of the previous statements. I understand that this is a highly heated topic for those of us in the neighborhood, and I appreciate that. I do want to clarify, though, that with the definition for a neighborhood store, under that definition, a luncheonette is also accepted. So the question of Mr. Phillips, I believe it was, concern regarding serving of food is accepted under the definition of a neighborhood store. And for the record, we are not planning on running a little diner like there is on Canal Street. That's a separate issue. Therefore, the trash and the smell that would go with the food, which would not be being prepared, seems to be a moot point. The lighting right now is not going to really be too much different than what it already is, but I appreciate the concerns that they find it distracting. As far as the noise level goes, the noise level is not going to increase, whether you grant this applicant what he's asking for or whether you deny it. The delivery trucks are still going to come and deliver gas at 3 in the morning. That is not going to change. It's been that way for years, and unfortunately will continue to be that way. The trash delivery man is going to continue to pick up the trash at the same time he currently does. So whether the applicant is granted his request or not, that unfortunately will not change. That's it. Unless anyone has a question of me, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public have questions or comments regarding this application? Hoping that we can come out of deliberative session quickly, so I encourage people to hang around. We don't dwell in there. But I'm looking, I will make a motion I'm sorry, before I do that.
I think we have one more thing down here.
We can drop the canopy. Things can be moved. I mean, we can drop the canopy. We can put the pumps on the other side of the building from the house, and, you know, anything that would please the neighborhood up there. You know, I'd be willing to look at.
Those are typically site plan issues, and I don't think we're really.
Okay.
Let's get through the first step first before we talk about the site plan. Yes.
When you're talking about site plan, you're talking about landscaping?
Yeah, we talked about, if we did talk about site plan, we would talk about landscaping.
Potentially another meeting.
Yeah.
One point I would make about the canopy is that, in addition to all the other points, if you're driving down the driveway to Solar Hill, and you're looking east to see what traffic is coming down Western Avenue, I don't think you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking for a motion, I will make, sorry, a motion to enter deliberative session. Seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you. I'll call the, reconvene the February 23rd, 2011 Brattleboro Development Review Board meeting to order. The board has come out of its deliberative session, and just a point of order. We'll explain our decision tonight, but our decision tonight isn't our decision. It's not the date of our decision. Effectively, our decision. This is more of a courtesy, a bit of a straw poll. Our decision issues when we issue a written decision, and we are obligated to do that within 45 days of the day that we close the evidentiary hearing, and we've already closed the evidentiary hearing. Any of our appeal periods from the decision tonight will begin to run, based on that decision, that date of the written decision, not the close of the evidentiary hearing tonight. We have our decision kind of follows a bit of a decision tree, and I'll just kind of go through each of those elements independently, and then there are a couple of other items I'll mention just as an aside for future consideration of the applicants and members of the public and the board. So the first decision we had to come to is whether the proposed use of the building as submitted to the zoning administrator and explained tonight is either a convenience store or a neighborhood store. And the board finds that that use is a convenience store. We may have taken a different position and may take a different position in the future if the use of that store and that building was decoupled from the gas tanks. A characteristic of a neighborhood store is that it serves the neighborhood in which it sits. The introduction or the continuance of gas pumps to the board suggests that it serves that store then, when combined with those gas tanks, would serve a geography larger than the neighborhood in which it sits, and therefore would be a convenience store. Then the next question we had to ask and answer is a convenience store less intense than its current characterization as a gas station and repair shop? The board finds that the use is not less intense. In fact, it is more intense. So it is a convenience store as submitted to the zoning administrator, and that use is more intense than its current use. So the expansion of the store we find is not permitted. The next question we have then is there are other elements of the application, including the canopy, the sign, the pavement expansion, and others. And so we had to ask ourselves, do those elements, do they increase the external evidence of a non-conforming use? And we find in order that the canopy would increase the evidence of a non-conforming use. A altered sign not only would increase the evidence of a non-conforming use, but we wouldn't be able to permit an altered sign because in order to have a different sign, it would have to be conforming in the district, and conforming sign in the district of a residential district is vastly smaller. I think Brian, do you know 2 or 3 square feet?
6 square feet.
6 square feet for the entire sign in a residential district. And then finally, we find that the pavement expansion is also an increase in the external evidence of non-conforming use, and in fact is inconsistent with the resolution, the settlement of the parties in a previous matter regarding that issue. But there are two items that we wanted to mention for everyone. I've already mentioned one of them, and that is if the gas pumps weren't there, it is likely that we find that the use was a neighborhood store because, again, it would logically then serve the local community, the neighborhood in which it sits, not a transient commuting community or commuters. And then the other item we wanted to mention is that a self-service station versus a full-service station, we don't think that changes the use of the station in any way. But if making those pumps that are currently there, replacing them with self-service pumps or modifying them in any way to make them self-service pumps, we would require that that application come before the board for a site plan review, because again, we would have to determine whether that change was an increase in the external evidence of a non-conforming use. So if there were large fire suppression systems that had to go up above a self-service tank that aren't above a full-service tank, and that was increased evidence of external use, then it's unlikely that we would prove that change to a self-service. But we don't find that a change from a full-service to a self-service by itself is a change in use such that it would not be permitted. We will issue our written findings, as I said, within 45 days. But I'm going to ask members, ask a member of the board to make a motion as I just stated. So moved. Second? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? I'm sorry. Let me step back. What we need to do is move as the applicant would want us to move, and that is the application has to be, I'm sorry, the motion has to be to overturn Brian's decision. So if you vote yay, you're voting to overturn Brian's decision and allow the applicant to proceed as planned. So I have that motion. Moved and seconded by Dr. Char. Okay. All those in favor of overturning Brian's decision, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
And I abstain. That carries one. That fails 1-5-1. Thank you very much for all your participation tonight. And I'll make a motion to adjourn. Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.